42 new legendary items and some class balance changes, and we are going to start off with Barbarian's main hand. Cleave is now a sequence of 3 attacks that sweep all around you, inflicting bleed and knocking enemies into air, but no longer has multiple charges. This might be good, but we don't know if it knocks you 3 times. If it does, it's kinda good because you can use this, and if somebody jumps on you, you probably just gonna knock them. Offhand, Hammer of Ancients now smashes into the ground, leaving an unstable area that erupts with additional damage after brief delay. This could be great if you use this and then CC enemy, but in PvE we kinda want to kill everything instantly, where this does definitely not shine. Chest: for every negative condition an enemy has Hammer of the Ancients, damage is increased by 8% up to 32. Now this can work pretty well with this one. If this will do a lot of damage, we will see. And Pants: after using Leap, your damage is increased by 10% for 4 seconds, so 19% with the essence levels. This is nice to have. Head: Demoralize now pulls in all nearby enemies, damaging and stunning them. Sounds good, but you probably want to use the CC immunity on Demoralize. Shoulders: Cleave, Tears the enemy armor, increasing the damage they take by 10% for 3 seconds. Now, if the Cleave is good, you might want to use this. We will see. We will see. But it's always nice to have the armor penetration things that will increase your and your teammates' damage, which is kind of nice. Next up, we have Bloodknight. Main hand: Ravage now causes the enemy to bleed, dealing damage over 3 seconds. Probably not the best. Offhand, Skeever now shatters the enemy's armor, increasing their damage taken by 10% for 3 seconds. This is kinda good if you want to use Skeever in PvP. You can now increase your damage and everybody damage on the target you hit with the Skeever, which can increase your damage almost 40%. Kinda good, kinda good. That's gonna melt people. Chest: Tendrils of Blood now instantly pulls all surrounding enemies to you. I guess fair enough. It can be used. Pants: Swarm of Bats increases in damage by 8% up to 32 for each negative status the target has. I mean, in PvP we don't really use Farm of Bats for damage purposes, but I guess this can have some use. Head: Maybe the Cloud now releases a poisonous mist that deals continual damage to enemies within it. Can be used, I guess. Shoulders: Swarm of Bats now calls a storm of bats to a target location, dealing damage and reducing enemy movement speed. Again, I feel like the immunity bats is just more used. This might see some use on PvE though, if it's good enough or if it does great enough damage. Alright, next up, Crusader. Main hand: Falling Sword now follows you, damaging nearby enemies and reducing their movement speed. Now, I don't know about PvP, as you kind of want to have CCs, but in PvE this probably sees a lot of use, because every AoE thing that just follows you around is a god tier open world farmer. Maybe not in dungeons, but open world will see some use, for sure. Offhand, Spinning Shell now causes 3 shells to orbit you, dealing damage as they pass through enemies. Again, sounds like good open world farmer. Chest: Damage increases by 10% when Draven Quarter is active. If you go full donkey build, this can be good. Pants: Draven Quarter now calls a Horse of Lightning, causing those that stand within its aura to take damage. Now, this goes hand in hand, it seems. This can be really good on PvE. Once again, you are just dealing damage all around you while you are on the horse form. Sounds good. Head: Consecration now places you in a state of radiance, during which every 3 attacks causes you to erupt with a light dealing damage. Honestly, I don't feel like Crusader is primary attack build, so maybe not the best one, but I might be wrong. Shoulders: Falling Sword cooldown reduced by 15%. Like to see this, but if you're well, you might already have Awakenings with cooldown reduction and you might not need this. But it's nice to have the option. Demon Hunter, main hand, Impel now throws multiple knives forward in an arc. I feel like the auto-attack Impel is probably better, but we'll see. Offhand, Impel damage increases the closer the enemy is to you up to 30%. Now this is not 30% damage increase, it's more like probably 10% overall damage increase if you are using the primary attack Impel. With the new one, it might see some use, we'll see. Chest, strafe, critical hit chance increased by 20% against enemies with less than 50% health. Kind of feel like this should just be flat, but we'll see. Pants, escape increases critical hit chance by 10% for 3 seconds. I wonder if this goes all the way to 19, and then you could have 50% just by these two. Sounds good. Head, multi-shot damage now increases by 0.5% for every 1% enemy life lost up to 30%. I feel like they're trying to make Demon Hunter a finisher class, but I don't really see this a lot of use for this. Maybe you just use this, hit primary attacks and lastly use this, but I will use multi-shot as a, CC ability. Shoulders, escape now launches forward, damaging and slowing enemies in its path. Sounds good. Maybe escape can get some use. You use both of these, get critical hit chance, maybe even strafe build, I don't know. Sounds that you have more options, sounds like. Alright, Monk, my class. Main hand, Shield Zen now adjusts fire blessings to you and your allies, allowing your primary attacks to ignite enemies. The only problem with ignite is that it's a dot effect, and if you're using primary attack build, you kind of want to kill them when you hit them. So yeah, it can be good in dungeons, but we will see. Maybe even in PvP. We don't know. We'll see how much it actually bleeds. Or with the new set items. We'll see. Offhand, with Inner Sanctuary, you and your allies deal 8% more damage. Now, if you remember my video where we went over about the damage buffs, and they do not stack. Maybe this is a different story, but usually they don't stack. Maybe if this goes on top of the 35 damage buff with your Inner Sanctuary, then this can be really good. But if it doesn't, this is kind of useless. At least in my opinion. But we'll see. Chest, gaining Shield Vision increases the movement speed of you and your allies by 40% for 4 seconds. Now, we already had 25% movement speed by the blessing, and its uptime can be 100%. So I don't think this is gonna see a lot of use. It can be a burst of speed to get out of or something, but I don't really think this is gonna be great item. Pants, Imprisoned Fist destroys enemy armor, increasing the damage they take by 10% for 3 seconds. I really like we are getting these too, but to be honest, Imprisoned Fist needs the one charge if you want to use the good Imprisoned Fist one, so maybe some builds can use this, but probably not. Head, Inner Sanctuary now moves with you, increasing your critical hit chance and that of your allies. Every nearby ally increases critical hit chance further. I like the fact that it moves with you, but honestly, if you have Crusader in your party, this is kinda useless, as the 35% damage increase will multiply with the Crusader buff. So yeah, it can have some uses, but to be honest, in dungeons, probably still better to use the 35. We will see if it fits a huge critical hit chance increase, then maybe it's going to be the meta, but we will have to wait before it's released. Shoulders, Wave of Light now attaches a bell to you and nearby allies, which continually resounds with purge of damage. This sounds like a Fires of the Peace, so this is going to be really good on open world, and I will be making a new open world build surely with this, because oh boy, this sounds really good to have 3 abilities that just deals damage around you and just run around and everybody dies. Oh boy, that's gonna be nice. Next up, Necromancer. Main hand, Combat Golem now summons a Fulgur Golem that deals lightning damage. So they're just getting a new Golem, alright. Offhand, Skeletal Mage now summons Thunder Mage that attack with Chain Lightning. I guess that chains between enemies. I hope so. We'll see. Chest. Bone armor now generates a pulse that wrench your summons in lightning, causing them to form electric links between one another that damages enemies. This sounds really great on paper, but how easily will this be used is another story. Can be really good if you can actually use this really well. Pants, bone armor's cooldown reduced by 15%. Again, kinda nice to have this. Maybe not that great if you already have rank 10s, but bone armor is really good and 15% cooldown reduction can be really great on that one. Head, common skeletons now summon the Storm Rider Legion, who automatically teleports to and damages enemies with lightning. Can be interesting. Shoulders. Skeleton mages strike faster with successive attacks, increasing their attack speed up to 20%. This is gonna skyrocket Necromancer's damage. I'm pretty sure this is going to be kinda huge thing, at least in PvE and dungeons. Alright, next up, Wizard. Main hand, Arcane Wind now conjures a wind core at the target location that continually damages and pulls nearby enemies to its center. Well, it doesn't CC you anymore, but I guess it does damage and pulls you, so pretty good. Offhand, Ice Armor now targets an enemy with a Frost mark that damages the target and nearby enemies, causing a stacking chill effect. So does this reoccur on the target? So you put that on and it's like seeping pile effect that just slows you down. Interesting. Chest. Lightning Nova now targets an enemy with lightning mark, causing them to repeatedly emit lightning novas centered on them. Oh boy, so you just drop these abilities on the enemy and they're going to start taking damage no matter if you are there or not. Pants. Meteor now targets an enemy with star mark, causing meteorites to crash down on their location. Oh boy, man. You're just gonna use every one of these, smash all of these on your enemies and just leave and hope they die. Oh boy. I don't want to be on the receiving end. Hit. Black Hole's cooldown reduced by 50%. Again, nice to have. Maybe not needed, but it's nice to have. Shoulders. After casting meteor, damage is increased by 10% for 3 seconds. Alright, so you just put all of these, you put this so you get a bit more damage, and then you probably just use teleport. Teleport in, use all your abilities, teleport out. Nice. Alright, class balances. So, Barbarian is getting buff to Undying Rage. The healing from players will be increased from 50% to 20%, and while wind damage increased by 15%, and these essences are also getting damage increase. Now on the Crusader is getting nerf on the Conjuration of Light, which is kind of sad because they did get a essence that reduced the cooldown, and now they're kind of like stepping back, like that was a bad idea, let's just increase the cooldown, which not the best way to go around, but I guess that just happened. Crusader items, blinding wall cooldown until a player can be affected by blind again increases from 3 to 5 seconds. I don't know how much this actually affects the gameplay, but it's still a nerf. Now Demon Hunter just got damage increases on these 2 items. The Excavator have seen some use, so this is kinda nice. Monk items, Shimmerling got damage increase by 12%. The nerf the Shimmerling got was so big compared to this that I don't think this will revive Shimmerling, but for PvE this is nice. I'm still using Shimmerling on PvE, so this just makes PvE a bit easier. Wizard items, Heart of the Storm, damage to players reduced by 10%, damage to monsters remains unchanged. I really like they are starting to use this, because now we can have builds on PvE which are great and broken on PvP, and then they can just reduce the damage on the players, and we still have great PvE build and balanced PvP builds. That's a great one. Alright, this is about the class balances and the 42 new legendary items, and I will be catching you on the next one.